There are hints, not so subtle, that Trump is unraveling.
The parade, the military parade, the Kim Jong-un style, Soviet style thing in Washington with tanks in the street, I think is a flop. Newsmax is reporting 10,000 people showed up for this thing.
But first, Trump's poll numbers continue to drop. After a weekend that was utterly humiliating for Trump, it's no secret that his poll numbers will be dropping like his nasty old boobs after he takes off his man girdle. That's a good one. Sorry about that, but it's true. These numbers were before this weekend.
There is an enemy in the room right now that is a compound enemy. There's an enemies list entrant today that is a compound enemy. First, let me say something optimistic, because I'm a ray of sunshine. Went to the Tallahassee No Kings rally. Thousands of people, more than I've ever seen at a protest in Tallahassee in my lifetime. Normally, you get a couple dozen people out there on the east lawn of the Capitol, and that's about it. Blocks around the Capitol jammed with people, thousands and thousands of people. It was an amazing event. This was iterated across the country. Millions and millions and millions of Americans were on the streets with a simple message. No kings, baby. We do not live in that world. Donald Trump had his little military parade in D.C. They expected 200,000 people. They got a couple thousand. I think there were more people in mid-sized American cities today, any random mid-sized American city today at No Kings, than there were at the entire Trump military parade.
This is Mike Madrid. He used to be the California political director for the Republican Party, and he says these recent numbers are especially bad for Donnie. He calls it a momentum shift. Madrid points out that Trump's approval numbers are 38%, lower than when he was foobarring the COVID response back in 2020. And here's the kicker. The latest numbers don't even represent the latest nightmares for Trump. For example, the assault on California Senator Alex Padilla.
Thank you to every single person that has been able to do this. Also, I want to talk specifically to the rioters and to the politicians in Los Angeles.
And recent federal court rulings against him using the National Guard. And then there's the assassination of these Minnesota lawmakers by an armed Trump supporter.
We're here today because an unspeakable tragedy has unfolded in Minnesota. My good friend and colleague, Speaker Melissa and her husband, Mark, were shot and killed early this morning in what appears to be a politically motivated assassination.
And of course, Fox, which has been turning up the heat and the rhetoric and playing a big part in this, pretends they had no part at all.
I do not care what side of the political spectrum you stand on. No form of political violence is okay.
We don't know who she is. We don't know what she believes. She's going to get paralyzed in the Situation Room while the generals have their way with her.
So what does this mean? I mean, Trump's numbers have been low before, but here's how it's different. Americans, and even MAGA, they don't want a dictator.
I mean, we are on the edge of a dark precipice where the rule of law doesn't exist, at least at the federal level. And that, I don't think people fully understand that yet.
There's a new Quinnipiac poll that says that 80% of Republicans disagree with the ICE raids employed by the National Guard and Marines and the use of drones in Los Angeles, the same drones we use in the Middle East to attack terrorists in Syria. But the signs of trouble for Trump, it started a few weeks ago when the big, beautiful bill failed in the House by one vote, then stalled in the Senate. In it were provisions to cut Medicaid and Medicare to millions of Americans, but also it didn't tax the uber wealthy and added trillions to the deficit. And this might be the canary coal mine. Trump is losing Dairy Queen.
MAGA cannot be ignored.
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene actually voted for the big, beautiful bill and then came out against it after she read it. But she wasn't alone.
This provision was unknown to me when I voted for the bill.
And now she's pushing back on Trump supporting Israel's attack on Iran. Now, of course, that could just be Dairy Queen's anti-Semitism. I mean, we remember this, right?
And can you tell me why so many people that support Donald Trump love conspiracy theories, including yourself? He seems to attract lots of conspiracy theorists.
Well, let me tell you, you're a conspiracy theorist, and the left and the media spreads more conspiracy theories. We like the truth. We like supporting our Constitution, our freedoms, and America first. So,
what about Jewish space lasers? Tell us about Jewish space lasers.
No, why don't you go talk about Jewish space lasers? And really, why don't you off? How about that?
Yeah, when this three-toed sloth pushes back against Trump, you know something's up. But that's just the start. While Trump is sending troops to Democratic cities, which looks like it's going to be halted soon by the Ninth Circuit, It's important to remember that these cities have at least 40% Republicans. And when Trump is arresting people who simply look like they're undocumented, well, that wasn't part of the plan.
The Republicans in Congress specifically be doing more to push the president to try to de-escalate his trade war. What leverage do you have?
Well, in Article 1 in the Constitution, really tariffs should be a congressional initiated action. So this should come from Congress. However, I think we made a mistake. In the past, we passed legislation that gave the president some temporary tariff authorities.
And remember, inflation numbers are still continuing to climb, what with the tariffs and the deportation of American workers who make up 75% of the agricultural workforce. So basically, Trump has spent the first 5 months of his presidency creating chaos out of order. I mean, just as the economy started to improve, Trump went the other way. I mean, he has absolutely no idea what he's doing.
Tariffs. To me, I think it's the most beautiful word in the dictionary. More beautiful than love.
Remember that and the pushback ripple to the Republican Party, even MAGA? But now Trump is attacking Americans, and Americans are saying, fuck that.
5 million people joined No King's Day protests Saturday in the largest day of action against President Trump since his return to office. Protests were held in more than 2,100 cities and towns across the country. In Los Angeles, 200,000 people marched just days after Trump deployed the National Guard and Marines to the city. Protesters in L.A. included former Marine Melvin Hill.
I'm out here because I was willing to die for the things we have in our Constitution. And right now, I think our constitutional rights are being violated, stepped on, trampled on, and disregarded by our president, commander-in-chief, which would be Donald Trump. I mean, everything looks unlawful to me at this point in America.
In Philadelphia, over 100,000 people took to the streets. Democratic Congressmember Jamie Raskin of Maryland addressed the crowd.
Yes, Donald, the Declaration and the Constitution were written by people who wanted to stop criminal bosses like you.
It's pretty obvious. Steve Miller, Hegseth, Steve Bannon, they want to crush democracy.
I just wanted to say, look, welcome to the end of democracy. We're here to overthrow it completely. We didn't get all the way there on January 6th, but we will endeavor to get rid of it and replace it with this right here. We'll replace it with this right here.
Amen.
But here's the thing. Due process isn't some newfangled democratic scheme. The specific phrase due process is in the Constitution, but it didn't start there. Go back 800 years to the Magna Carta. You can't just arrest people in the streets or you will get a revolution. So what's happening right now is remarkable and important. Millions of people are taking to the streets, and if you think protests mean nothing, well, history would argue with you. The Civil Rights Movement stood up to 200 years of racist segregation, and they won. The Civil Rights Act was passed. And Vietnam, were it not for protesters in Vietnam out on the streets every day protesting the weekly 1,000 deaths of young men, that war would continue to rage. But the people and the protests stopped it. So people do make a difference. But the last part of this is startling. If you watched a military parade, you may have noticed many soldiers were purposely walking out of step. But this doesn't happen by accident. That's the first thing they learn is how to walk in sync. By doing this, they are sending out a silent protest. They are not part of this. Trump is losing whatever control and power he had, and MAGA and Republicans will have to make a choice. Pick America over a dictator or suffer the most crushing and deserved defeat in history. Meanwhile, the streets have something to say.
Goddamn right.
Do you have no shame?
I don't want to talk about this stuff.
Am I wrong?
Yes!
Tick-tock!
You're in a lot of trouble, Donnie.
I think he's crazy.
I'm Chip Franklin.